Can you get an extra large hot coffee with cream and sugar and a turbo shot?
Extra large hot coffee, cream and extra large. Is that all for you?
That's it. Thanks. We're going. Oh yeah, coffee. I can't live without coffee. Do cold air intakes really make your car faster? Let's talk about that. I think the most common question in the S197 world, everybody knows, is it worth getting a cold air intake? Is it worth it? What is it gonna, you know, these manufacturers of these cold air intakes make all these claims, these dyno claims, Steeda, GLT, Air Raid, BBK, you know, everybody thinks they got the best cold air intake for performance. The truth of the matter is that air intakes on an S197 for 2011 and up aren't really gonna do shit horsepower wise. Now I'm gonna be fucking completely honest here with you. There's different companies that are gonna show that they gain so much or they gain so much of this, and they always say when paired with a tune. Now when you hear paired with a tune on a cold air intake, it obviously means the tune is gonna be your benefit, not the cold air intake. Now there's a couple people that have kind of went into some research that I know of on this, and one of them is Jordan. You guys probably know Jordan if you're into Facebook groups and whatnot. He had quite a few things that he pulled up to show that there really is no horsepower benefit from getting a cold air intake on your car. So therefore that leaves you with, the fact that should you really even expect any performance increase from a cold air intake? The answer is no. And it's the same thing with a throttle body. It's the same thing with if you're going to buy a BBK, 73 millimeter throttle body, or a 90 millimeter throttle body for a Coyote, anything like that. You're essentially not doing anything more for the air coming in the engine, because think of it like this, okay? You got a straw that's about this long, all right, and you're going to drink out of that straw. Now you take the one end of the straw and you open that end up, but the other end is still the same size. So realistically, you're only going to take in the same amount that you can from the other side that's still small. Same thing with the car, same principle. You can open it up as much as you can, but you're still only going to be able to take in as much air as your car is going to allow it to burn with. You're going to take in all this more air into your intake manifold that can only process so much air coming in, that your car can only burn so much fuel with the air that's coming in also. And it's going to have to sort out air-fuel ratios and all that, and it's going to leave you with no performance gain. Now, doing something like on a 3.7, pouring your intake manifolds, now you're opening up a little bit, you're changing the velocity at which air can come in, how quickly it can come in, it's not just the size of it either, it's the way that it comes in, it's the flow of it. Opening that up, and then doing your cold air intake in your, why is this guy stopped like right fucking next to me? It's the only time you're really gonna see any kind of gains from intake mods is when you're doing stuff with your intake manifold itself. That's really about it. So to answer a question, what intake or what cold air intake is best for my S197, for my 3.7 or for my 5.0? The answer is really none, performance-wise. Now, if you're looking for sound, if you want to get that growl, that deep growl, that howling noise that you get from cold air intake, I had a BBK on a 3.7, and that thing was loud. I'll tell you, when I put it on, it just, you heard it. You heard that punch when you pressed it. So, just based off of sound and looks alone, if I were to say build a 3.7 again, yes, I would get another cold air intake. I wouldn't get a BBK air intake because we're dealing with a metal tube, and what the fuck are you doing? We're dealing with a metal tube, so here's the problem with that. You're gonna heat up that metal tube. That's going to heat up the air coming in the engine, which doesn't matter at that point really where you're gonna take the air from, because now you're taking cold air and you're putting it right through a hot metal tube. You're like essentially just microwaving the air that's coming in your engine. So that's counterproductive. And there's some cases like that where you're actually going to get hotter ambient air intake temperatures than as if you just left the factory box, or if you went with one with like a plastic tube. Now, the best setup, and what I've heard, what I've seen, now I haven't done this on any of my own cars, because I have an Air Raid in the 5.0, which again, I'm going back to the stock airbox. It's coming off. I ran faster on a stock airbox. I have not beaten my quickest time on a stock airbox since I put the air raid on, which tells me it's pointless as far as that goes. And I don't really care about looks. I don't care about all that stuff. In the 5.0, I just want to see how fast I can go. That's really about it. Let me get some coffee real quick. Best setup from what I've seen, what I've heard, speaking in terms of 3.7 and 5.0. If you're going to try and get performance out of your cold air intake, what you want to do is pick up a air raid cold air intake tube. Get the tube and then find a high flow drop-in like paper filter, like I think it's a K&N makes it. That's going to be your best setup performance-wise. You're going to keep the stock airbox, but you're going to get rid of the tube. You're going to put the air raid tube on there. This way, you're going to get your cold air coming out the front, which is built like that from the factory, which is Ford. If you look into what Ford did for the cold air intake on the S197s for 2011 and up, Ford spent a lot of money and a lot of time trying to introduce, this just actually factory, I guess what you call a factory cold air intake system. Out of the box, right off the showroom floor, these cars have a true cold air intake on them. You don't have to put a cold air intake on to do performance mods. So that leaves you with the final question. What are you trying to do with your car? Do you want a performance machine? If you want a performance machine, then get an air raid tube and a paper filter drop-in. If my phone's fucking ringing, fuck.